Hello there and welcome back to Let's Play The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel. I'm the RNGenius, but you may call me Eric, and in the last episode we ended up clashing with the Arcade style of swordsmanship. We ended up beating all the students that were attending class here, and afterward Klaus challenged us to combat, and we had a very interesting battle against him. Of course we won, because we always win, and now it is late evening and we're gonna go to Toval. But first, of course, talk to everybody except Toval. Because, you know, reasons. Butler Klaus.
Good day, everyone. Might I ask how your field study tasks are coming along?
We actually just finished the last of them not too long ago. All we need to do now is check in with Toval.
I'm pleased to hear that. I shall await your return then. I've already made preparations for dinner, so please do try to return swiftly. I wouldn't want it to get cold. I managed to haul in a nice catch today thanks to all the fog. There's plenty to go around, so I hope you all get along. You're all gonna enjoy it. I managed to haul in a nice catch.
Ben's brought along some fine fish for our dinner tonight. I just got some top-class meat in too, so it's time to get cooking. Bem's brought fish, and I've got meat. Cool stuff. And you know what? I don't eat meat. Cool, huh? Wow. Oh, you're so cool, Eric. Hey, you made my bed.
Good day, everyone! As you can see, your rooms have all been cleaned and prepared, so feel free to return here whenever you've finished your day's labors. Good day!
No one outside? Okay, if Klaus is in here, who's in the swordsmanship school, in the Arcade school? In the training halls, what I should call this building. You guys have... Nope, you switch positioning again. You might have already heard, but the time's finally come for me to go back home. I'll be sure to continue dedicating myself to my training so as not to bring shame upon the name of the Arcade school. Thank you for giving me the chance to have such a great fight before I leave. It means a lot to me. You've inspired me to train harder than I ever have before. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come spar with us. Dude, you look kind of like a little bit like Roxas from the Kingdom Hearts universe, but that's cool. Fritz is planning on returning to his hometown next month. We've come from all corners of the country to train, and one day we'll all have to return to our homes, taking the name and teachings of the Arcade school with us. I'll be sad to see him leave, but the memories of our days training together will live on in my heart forever. I'll be sad to see him leave, but we spend our days and nights training alongside one another. No matter how many years you go by, that's not something I'll ever forget. Could have made it even more unforgettable by wearing cat ears all the time. Ha! Yeah! Ho! Yeah! Hi! Yeah! Whoa! Yeah! Okay, enough. Jesus, my neighbors are probably thinking I'm having a mental breakdown.
I'm still frustrated that we lost, but it was amazing to see a duel between yourselves and Master Klaus. I've got to keep going, keep on training, just like you.
Yo, how's it going? You managed to spare a little time to kick back and relax today?
We're here as a part of our academy's curriculum, so I'm afraid relaxation is not an option.
Forget about that. Well, don't forget to take it easy every now and then, though. Wouldn't want to waste your time back home, would you? Well, don't forget to take it easy every now and then, though. Wouldn't want to waste your time back home, would you?
Why is taking it easy? Why is not taking it easy wasting your time? I don't get it.
Father Heimdallr always focuses on telling stories rather than actually teaching during Sunday school. He refuses to listen when I tell him to stop getting carried away, and the children only seem to encourage him. He simply cannot be trusted with the responsibility of teaching. I plan on taking over Sunday school classes at some point in the future. Father Heimdallr just cannot be trusted with the responsibility of teaching after all.
Oh. You've been cleaning the entire day, lady.
I see that the liner has arrived. I also see strange men disembarking from time to time, so I have to stay on guard. The last thing I want is some licentious prowler getting too close to Lady Laura's home. I see that the liner has arrived. Please explain to me what the word licentious prowler, licentious? I do not know that adjective, okay? I just don't, and I'm probably gonna forget looking it up. And if you actually end up telling me what that word means, please tell me this, like, licentious means this, and not just it means this, because then I don't have any connection to what you're talking about.
The Arcade School has its origins in the Knights of the Eisenritter, led by Saint Sandlot during the War of the Lions. They played a crucial role in supporting Emperor Drykos, which led to their school gaining greater renown over time. Even today, we still see people come in from all over the country who seek to train under Lord Arcade. All the citizens of Legram are really proud of that. Proud that such a famous school of swordsmanship has its roots here. The Arcade School has its origins in the Knights of the Eisenritter. We are very proud. I get it.
Good evening. We'll be closing up shop for the night soon. Granted, this store has no strict opening or closing times. I'll gladly open the shop for you if you need something, even in the middle of the night. Just give a knock on the window.
If you say so, I'll probably, sometimes. Alright, nothing too good. Dog. Woof. Woof woof. Woof. Woof 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 woofity woof.
What in the world is Carno still doing out at this hour? This isn't the first time he's been out this late either. And here I even made hamburgers tonight. Those are his favorite. I'd appreciate it if he'd hurry home and set the table for me. Carno spends almost every day playing with Julian, from sun up to sundown. I guess that's just how boys are, though.
Carno, your mother's waiting. Get back home. Stupid little kid.
I'm gonna do it. If no one finds out, it'll be just like we never did anything wrong.
I really don't think you should try it. Your dad's gonna get real mad at you again. Oh, we're gonna see as to what they're talking about soon. I just came in from the highway. The statues out there need some work done on them from time to time, you see. Hopefully that'll please the spirits. Cindy's been acting kind of odd these days, though. She never gives me a proper answer when I ask her what's wrong either.
Did you know that there's a novel series aimed at youngsters about vampires spoken of in legends? I was curious, so I ended up giving them a read myself, and they ended up being quite the page-turners. Here, take this. I'd stop short of calling it a modern classic, but I think you'll like it.
Ooh.
And thus another day comes to an end. Fortunately, it was another fine day for my son and grandchildren, too. I owe my thanks to Idios and the spirits.
I know I gave a relatively old lady the young lady voice. My mistake. Oh, cool. We have read chapter 9. I'm not gonna read that out right now. Probably next episode.
Part of me feels like it's not necessary, but at the same time, not doing anything at all would just be rude. May I ask what's bothering you, Cindy? Lady Laura! It's nothing at all, ha ha ha! I'm just kind of letting my thoughts wander, you see? Ha 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 ha.
Where's the cat? Where is Celine? Celine the cat, where you at?
There's no need for us to board the train right now.
Yeah, let's focus on the task at hand. It's probably wise to avoid the highway this late in the evening. Right, let's report back to the guild.
But what if there's new types of monsters in the night during nighttime? I mean, that's common practice for video games, right?
Ah, there's a boat on the wharf!
I didn't...
That's the ferry liner. It returns to the wharf every evening.
The ferry liner.
It's the ferry liner, of course. Why didn't you know this?
You guys. That was no... This is the sound of a door opening. Where was that?
Cindy's been acting rather odd lately. My goodness, don't tell me she's trying to make a move before the rest of us. I'll have to give her a stern warning when I see her. Huh? What in the world is she talking about?
Huh? Laura, I'd be careful if I were you.
One can't simply claim Lady Laura for herself. The wealth must be shared between us all. I'll have to give Cindy a stern warning when I next see her.
She's sure taking her sweet time coming back again. Oh, my apologies. We've got a bit of an oddball staying here, you see. She told me she wouldn't eat any dinner, then just took off. Hasn't been back since. She's out for quite a while today, too. Guess I should get her room ready for her at least. Huh, quite the oddball staying here, and it's a she. We'll see. We'll see. It's all gonna come together. No one out here. Talk to the ferry liner, then. Mr. Ferry, Mr. Liner. Hey there, this liner's heading out for the Sutherland province on the opposite shore. Only 2 trips daily, so if you're planning on boarding, you'd better hurry. Hey there, this liner's heading for the Sutherland province on the other side. Ready to depart. The fog's cleared up, so it looks like we'll have a great view on the way back. Can I just board right now? Like, why not? Huh. Well, cool. We have a ferry. Nice stuff. We've talked to everybody, haven't we? Okay, it's been, I assume the like, Red Moon Rose chapter will take approximately 10 minutes, so I'll read it out, and after that end the episode. Chapter 10, Into the Darkness, 30 pages, it'll take like 15 minutes. Ordinarily, the late hour was the peak of business for the Algaria Tavern, or any other day on any other day the chairs would all be filled with familiar faces, chattering away and enjoying food and drink. But tonight not a single seat was taken, for so great was the terror of the vampire murders that none dared to leave their homes. Left with nothing else to do, Luca had set about cleaning the tavern, but the task was quickly finished. She slouched at the spotless counter, thoroughly bored. There hadn't been any sign of her friend Alphonse that day. Still, considering the rumors she'd heard of the Gerard team's nighttime patrols, it wasn't all that surprising. He must be really busy, she thought to herself. Still, she couldn't pretend that she wasn't disappointed by the fact. Thoughts of Alphonse weighing on her mind, she let out a gloomish sigh. The tavern's owner stopped washing cutlery on the other side of the counter and gave her a warm smile. Go along home for today. It's dangerous around these parts lately, so you're best getting back, he called. Just as she went to do so, however, the bell over the door chimed. A customer had entered the tavern. Luca jumped out of her chair in a panic. What she saw made her gasp. Standing in the doorway of the tavern was a young man in a blood-stained soldier's uniform. Letting out a short shriek of horror, she rushed over to the man. The uniform he had on was the same as the one worn by Alphonse, leading her to immediately think it might be him. As she drew closer, though, she realized it wasn't. Relief washed over her. Getting a closer look on his face, Luca startled to find that she actually recognized him. A long time ago, when Alphonse had first joined the army, he had brought the man before her with him to visit the tavern. She remembered hearing that the two of them weren't on very good terms anymore, however. His name was Elroy? The tavern's owner hurried over with a first aid kit, clearly concerned, but Elroy showed no interest in him. His eyes were focused unwaveringly on Luca. Hello, friend of Alphonse. I'm gonna have to ask you to come with me, he muttered. His following smile was anything but inviting. By the time Alphonse and Rose arrived, the tavern was in a terrible state. Chairs were strewn everywhere, tables lay in pieces all about the space, and the floor was covered in smashed glass and broken crockery. On the other side of the counter, they found the owner, blood trickling from his temple. Calmly, Rose used the church's thaumaturgy to heal him. Its mysterious power closed his wounds, and soon after he regained consciousness. The second he did, Alphonse began to bombard him with questions. What happened here? Where's Luca? He couldn't see any sign of her, and that worried him intensely. A boy in a military uniform came. No, that was no new human. It was a monster. I tried to fight him off, but he took Luca. The moment he uttered Luca's name, he fell unconscious once again. Not long after, the soldiers who had been patrolling the surrounding area had heard what had happened and hurried to the scene. The area soon filled with the sounds of people's voices and soldiers running up and down the streets. Even a number of the local residents had woken up and begun to gather to see what was going on. Eventually, Gerard himself arrived and set about questioning the tavern's owner and investigating the scene with a number of his subordinates. Alphonse and Rose, meanwhile, stood in the shadow of a building not far away. "Damn you, Elroy!" Alphonse cried out as he punched one of the brick walls with all his might. Nearby, Rose stood with her arms folded, deep in thought. "Stay calm. We have every reason to believe that Luca is still alive." Elroy had fled to search for new blood to heal his injuries and increase his power. If he was intending to use Luca for that purpose, there was no reason to take her away. It would have been far quicker and easier to just drink her blood in the tavern. Thus, it was safe to assume that he had a different purpose in mind for her. And the most likely reason seemed to be to use her to lure them somewhere. "I suspect that I know where he is headed," said Rose. She pointed down to the ground below her feet. During the previous day's encounter with Elroy, he had summoned a large number of ghouls out of seemingly nowhere, each of them victims without families or friends to note their absence. Elroy had been abducting them in secret and storing them somewhere for when he wanted them, and there was every reason to believe there were more. To stash them, he would need quite a sizable area, but it also had to be one where the chance of them being found would be quite low. In other words, a place that no one really went. A perfect match for both of those conditions was the network of underground passages beneath the city. The tunnels had been built during the Dark Ages several hundred years prior and were not normally used by people. Somewhere in there, Rose theorized Elroy was probably waiting for them. Alphonse proposed that they departed immediately. After all, every second they waited increased the danger that Luca was in. Rose, however, stood silently, her eyes cast downwards. "Is something bothering you?" Alphonse asked, her mouth tightened. "Two things, in fact. Firstly, I suspect that Elroy is what is known as an elder vampire. There were, Rose explained, several kinds of vampires. Those who were legitimate descendants of the race were known as true ancestors. The true ancestors were said to have all perished, but those who were closely related to them were known as elder vampires, and unlike true ancestors, some elder vampires still remained. Elder vampires were filled with a lust for blood every 10 or so years, and in surrendering themselves to that lust, they had been responsible for countless deaths throughout history. As a vampire hunter, therefore, they were Rose's most important targets. Furthermore, they were apparently among the most powerful of all vampires, with exceptional growth potential. As an example of this, Rose explained that when Luca was first attacked, she had been guided to a deserted area by a high-level ability called Charm, which allowed the user to control the thoughts of their victim to a certain degree. It was finding out that Luca had lost her memories of what happened when she was attacked that had first alerted Rose to the possibility that Elroy might be an elder vampire, and that was what had first led her to try to distance Alphonse from her investigation. The fact that they might be dealing with an elder vampire was only one of her concerns, however, though the other was closely related to it. The astonishing power elder vampires possess is amplified even further at night. Because of that, it should be impossible for them to be able to disguise their presence completely. And yet, in the battle against Elroy earlier, he had been able to do just that, allowing him to make his escape. It had so surprised Rose that she had missed her chance to finish him off. It's possible that he's no ordinary elder vampire, or perhaps he is something even more terrifying, she mused aloud. They had no way of telling what Elroy was truly capable of, or even what he truly was. As such, it was impossible to gauge at how much danger they would be putting themselves in by following him, especially knowing that they would be walking right into a trap. Whilst she had no choice but to follow, she found herself questioning whether bringing Alphonse along would really be a good idea. The reservation must have been plain on her face, because Alphonse cut off her thoughts with a determined shake of the head. I'm going to take a sip of my water. Rose, I told you already that I'm not gonna die. I won't let you be alone ever again. I don't care how strong our opponent is. I'm not gonna let you get. I'm not going to get back on my word. I'm not gonna go back on my word. The resolve was clear and unwavering in his eyes. With or without her blessing, he would see it through to the end. He would not abandon someone living a life of solitude like he once did. The pure innocence of that emotion and empathy was enough to recall her own bleak loneliness. The dark feelings passed over her features like a cloud, obscuring the stars. There was, after all, one other secret she had yet to part with, and that, more than anything, was the cause of her solitude. The warmth of his words almost coaxed it from her lips, so moved was she. But now wasn't the time. For the moment, his heartfelt declaration was enough for her. Their priority needed to be saving his friend. Everything else could wait. "I'm sorry," she said. I thought I had overcome my hesitations, but it seems that wasn't the case." With a mental shake of the head, she pushed her doubts deep within and slowly moved her hand downwards towards her waist. Her fingers sought out her spear blade and an elegant longsword. Unclipping it from her belt, she handed it to Alphonse. "This should serve as a replacement for that broken saber. I imagine you'll be able to fight more comfortably with this." Alphonse hefted it in his hand, admiring the balance. He slipped it a hand's width out of the scabbard for a closer look. Like Rose's other purified weapons, it had a silvery glow that seemed to suck in the light of the red moon. A blow from a blade like this would surely stop a vampire in its tracks. Rose had always known that the short sword she had given Alphonse was hardly the ideal weapon for him. She had done this deliberately, hoping that having an unsuitable weapon would dissuade him from trying to get actively involved in battle. Yet, not once he had balked at entering the fray. With whatever resources he had at his disposal, Alphonse was always ready to jump right in. Giving him the longsword, therefore, was a sign that she now regarded him as someone worthy of trust, and an apology for underestimating him previously. Alphonse acknowledged the gift. Perhaps apology with a nod of the head, and attached the blade to a sturdy leather baldric. They had regarded one another for a moment then, and swore to do what needed to be done. Their mutual resolve reaffirmed, they took off into the deep darkness where Luca and the vampire waited. Next to Heimdallr, there flowed a great river known as the Anor. Facing out onto it was Heimdallr port, and in one corner of that port was a door that led down into an underground passage. The entrance was usually locked for safety reasons, but they forced it open without much trouble and stepped inside. The air within was a mixture of mold, rusting metal, and a pervasive smell of damp. Cautiously they moved along the slick stone path, ears and eyes strained for any movement. Then there suddenly was a yellow space jelly they had to deal with, because there's quite a lot of those down there. The tunnel was connected to the river itself, and the torpid water flowed all the way into the deep darkness further along the passage. It had been constructed during the Dark Ages, and the network of passages under the city was so vast that no one knew just how far it stretched, or exactly what lay within it. The entire area had long been abandoned. No maintenance or modernization had ever been done. To Alphonse's eye, it looked as though they were setting foot in some ancient labyrinth, untouched by time or man for hundreds of years. They proceeded deeper inside, following Elroy's trail along the waterway, with only the faintest of light from the red moon trickling through the periodic gates to illuminate their path. The scent coming from him was had returned in full force, filling the air with tension as they drew closer and closer to their quarry. They proceeded cautiously and more slowly now, as even the light of the moon eventually abandoned them during their descent. The pitch darkness did not last for long, however. As they advanced, they soon started to come across torches here and there, attached at intervals along the wall. The glow from the flickering light was both inviting and sinister. It looks like he really has been using this place as a hideout for quite a while. With a manly voice, Alphonse commented. He and others, Rose thought with distaste. It seemed very likely that the people Elroy had abducted were somewhere around too. No sooner had the thought crossed her mind than that she sensed movement. She sighed. It looks as though we're too late. The meaning of Rose's words soon became clear. Slowly but surely, a number of figures drew closer to them from ahead. They shuffled and jerked with unnatural cadence. Ghouls. While Elroy had abducted Luca without drinking her blood, it seemed as though he had used the other people he had been keeping here in her place. Alphonse couldn't help but feel a slight sense of relief when he realized that Luca was not among them. But that didn't prove for certain that she was still unharmed. After all, all Elroy needed to do to get them to chase after him was have them believe that there was a chance that she was still alive. As the creatures approached, it was clear that they had no time to waste. Alphonse quickly drew the longsword while Rose already had her Templar sword and pistol in hand, ready for battle. We need to deal with these first. Right. Their course of action decided, they both charged into the horde of advancing ghouls. It was the first time that Alphonse had been forced to engage in actual combat with ghouls, and he found it emotionally draining. After all, the ghouls were nothing more than victims of the vampire. They hadn't chosen to have their lives taken, or to be compelled to seek to devour their fellows. It had all been forced upon them. As such, he was not fighting to kill them, but to free them. Thinking of it logically didn't do much to reduce the pain of taking up arms against another human being, though. His heart ached every time he cut one down. Rose, meanwhile, was mowing down ghouls like a scythe through the summer harvest. They were nothing more than obstacles in her way. Their shambling attacks were no match for her peerless work with the blade. No matter the speed and skill with which she dissipated them, though, more ghouls emerged from the darkness to block their path. Watching her, Alphonse couldn't help but wonder how long she had been enduring the same pain that he was feeling now. It didn't show on her face, but he remembered the tenderness with which she had handled the ghoul after defeating it on their first meeting. She was as disgusted as he with their plight. He wanted to know what had driven her to continue subjecting herself to that pain over and over and over again, what had driven her to the depths of solitude. But most of all, he wanted to find some way that he could be of help to her. Right now, however, all that he could do for her was to continue to fight. Shoving down the sorrow he felt with every swing of the sword that met flesh, he kept advancing forward through the massive bodies before him. Using the torches on the walls as their beacons, Alphonse and Rose hurried as best they could through the maze of passages. Dozens upon dozens of ghouls obstructed their way, but they continued to carve their way forward. They advanced, slowly, each battle taking a toll on their stamina and energy. Eventually, the path ahead of them opened, and they found themselves in a wide, spacious area. The ground here was grey and soft beneath their feet. It was earth, not stone. A number of crosses were lined up in tidy rows in the sweeping space, probably erected during the Dark Ages. Their bindings looked so weathered that they could have crumbled to the ground at any moment. The area was lit only by a few sputtering torches, but it was enough to see that they must be in a catacomb of some sort. The atmosphere in the subterranean tomb was even gloomier than it had been in the passages they had passed through to reach it. At its center stood a single silent man wearing a black coat over his tattered army uniform. Alphonse had been leaning exhaustedly against Rose after their seemingly endless battles with the ghouls, but when he spied the familiar figure, he let out a mighty yell. "Elroy!" His voice boomed throughout the chamber, but the other man didn't flinch in the slightest. Instead, he calmly turned to face them. The air grew heavy with malevolence. "I've been expecting you," he said, smiling. He regarded them with amusement. As his lips crept farther and farther up, his needle-sharp fangs were slowly revealed. They were stained a deep, wet red. Boy, that took 20 minutes. Cool stuff. I want the next novel, like, piece of the series now. But it's not an option, is it? Well, I hope you enjoyed it, though, and I hope I'll see you in the next episode as well. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, toodles!